have said things very similar to what I've said, and I would not in any way, shape, or form whatsoever identify as a mythicist or say that my position is at all aligned with mythicism. And what I would say is that when it comes to the existence of a historical Jesus, we cannot know for sure. All that we can do, which is all that we can do with the overwhelming majority of scholarship related to interpretation, related to authorship, related to historicity, the best we can do is weigh probabilities and decide what makes the best sense of the available data. And right now, I would say the overwhelming majority of scholars agree that it is more likely that a historical Jesus existed. Now, some people will say it's a lot more likely. We'll say, we can be certain. I am probably just underneath that threshold. I think I would say it is a lot more likely. I don't think we can be certain, which means that I leave open the possibility, maybe even the plausibility, that there was no historical Jesus, but I would reject identification as a mythicist.
Well, I mean, it's funny because even if you reject the obvious interpolation of the Flavius Testimonius, whatever it is, the other part where Josephus mentions Jesus in passing as the brother of another guy who got killed, like, it's thin, but it's there.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So there you have it, friends. If you are trying to dismantle Christianity, this is not the way to go. I think
there are easier ways to do that.
Everybody, does Josephus identify Jesus as the Christ in his book Jewish Antiquities? Definitely not. But
many defenders of the authenticity of the Testimonium often cite the James passage, and they say, well, Origen may not mention the Testimonium, but he mentions the James passage, James, the brother of Jesus.
And I go through point by point with a good table comparing the different explanations of how this line came in there. And you can see that there's multiple reasons to doubt that Josephus ever wrote the words Legomenos Christos, that this was originally a story about the Jesus who at the end of the story becomes high priest. It's a different Jesus. It's actually not our Jesus. And it's
Jesus, son of Damnius.
Right. And so it was the insertion of Legomenos Christos, those two words, that changed the perception of what this text was about. And the text makes much more sense being about Jesus ben Damnius than it does about Jesus Christ. Again, it violates every principle of Josephus's discourse style to have done it that way, including it doesn't reference the Testimonium Flavianum, which it would have done. So the narrative doesn't, and by the way, this narrative does not fit any of the other narratives, the Christian narratives of the death of James, the same James. So there's disconnect here. And when you look at the way that Origen talks about this passage, he actually is referencing a different story told in Hegesippus. He's not telling the story that's in Josephus. So he's made a mistake. He's confused a story in Hegesippus as a story in Josephus. And I've actually shown under peer review in a journal article that this is a mistake Origen makes a lot. Like he actually does sometimes confuse who's saying what.